Thanks for tuning in to Operation Revenge. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin the story. When I walked into my aunt's backyard that evening, the noise of chatter and laughter hit me like a wave. Everyone was gathered under strings of patio lights, glasses clinking, voices rising with excitement. I had expected anyone to notice me, but instead all eyes were on Kara. "Everyone, can we raise a toast to Kara's new job at Sterling Global Energy?" my uncle boomed, grinning from ear to ear. A cheer went up, and my cousin Kara gave a modest wave, pretending to blush. She always knew how to play the part. I lingered near the edge of the crowd, holding a plate I hadn't even filled yet. This was supposed to be a welcome-back gathering. My first time home in nearly 18 months after working in environmental crisis zones in Southeast Asia. I thought maybe someone would ask me about it, maybe even say they were glad I was home. Instead, it was as if I was invisible. Kara strutted around in a tailored blazer, talking about her big role in corporate strategy. "It's such a competitive position," she said, flipping her hair over her shoulder. "They told me my background check and clearances were flawless. I guess they knew I was destined for this kind of work." I forced a smile and took a sip of soda, trying not to roll my eyes. My uncle slid over to me with a smirk. "So, Lila, what's next for you now that all that overseas contract stuff is over? Must feel strange having no real direction, huh?" My jaw tightened. "I'm still deciding my next step," I said evenly. It wasn't worth explaining the months of grueling fieldwork, the nights I'd spent in tents surrounded by floodwater, or the risk assessments I'd led to prevent disasters. They wouldn't care. Kara's voice rose again. "I can't wait to start. Oh, and look," she said, pulling a leather folder from her bag. "This is my official clearance letter. They said it's one of the fastest approvals they've ever issued." She waved the papers around like a prize. I glanced at the document and my stomach dropped. There it was, my name, Lila Greenwood, listed as the reference that had granted her special clearance. My professional credentials, my licenses, all used without my consent. Kara caught my expression and gave a little smirk. "Oh, I hope you don't mind. They just needed someone with a proven environmental record to sign off. It's no big deal. We're family." I didn't respond right away. My hands felt clammy as I set down my untouched plate. I wasn't sure if it was anger or shock pulsing through me. For years, I had worked myself to the bone to build my reputation, and now it was just a convenient stepping stone for her to brag about at a family barbecue. The conversation around me blurred into background noise. My uncle clapped Kara on the back, calling her the future of energy innovation, while I stood there, silent, realizing that my own family saw me as nothing but irrelevant, except when my name was useful on someone else's paperwork. I slipped out through the side gate, the laughter from the patio fading behind me. The cool night air hit my face, but it didn't clear the anger bubbling inside me. I walked to the edge of the yard, where the old wooden fence separated my aunt's property from the neighbors. Leaning against it, I tried to steady my breathing. How long had my family been using me like this? They hadn't even asked, not once. I thought of the years I'd spent in mud-soaked boots, pulling long hours in the field, only to come home and be treated like some kind of washed-up volunteer. And now Kara was being celebrated for a job she didn't even qualify for, at least not without my name. Footsteps crunched on the grass. "Lila?" Kara's voice was soft, almost cautious. She came around the corner of the house, her blazer catching the faint light from the backyard. "Hey, wait up. I need to talk to you." I crossed my arms and didn't move. "I don't think there's much to say." Kara gave a nervous laugh, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Okay, look. I know you saw the clearance letter. It's just, they need one last thing to finalize everything. I need your official signature on a couple of forms. It's a formality, that's all." I stared at her, stunned. "You want me to sign off on something I never agreed to in the first place?" "It's not a big deal," she said quickly. "Come on, Lila. You know I'd do the same for you. The job means a lot to me, and Dad's been so proud. Don't ruin this over paperwork." I took a slow breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Do you even realize what you're asking me? My credentials aren't a free pass for you to play corporate hero. You didn't earn them, Kara." Her smile faltered. "You're overreacting. It's just family helping family." "No," I said, my tone colder than I expected. "This isn't help. It's fraud, and I'm not signing anything." For the first time that night, Kara's confident demeanor cracked. Lila, please, if you don't, they'll run another check and I'm done, I cut in sharply. For once, I'm not letting anyone use my name to get ahead. I turned my back on her and walked away, leaving her standing by the fence, her mouth half open like she couldn't believe I'd actually said no. Back in my apartment later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing the jeans and jacket I'd thrown on for the barbecue. The silence of the room felt heavy, pressing down on me. My phone buzzed with a new message from Kara. Let's talk, okay? I'll explain. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop. If Kara had already been granted clearance under my credentials, I needed to know exactly what she had done and how deep this went. I logged into my old project accounts and cross-checked the environmental certifications I'd accumulated over the years. It didn't take long to find something suspicious. A corporate background check where my name had been listed as a senior environmental verifier for Sterling Global Energy. The problem was, I'd never spoken to anyone at Sterling in my life. The more I dug, the worse it got. Kara had submitted a glowing recommendation letter under my name, along with a list of certifications that weren't hers. Licenses I'd earned from years of fieldwork, now neatly listed on her resume. It wasn't just a little white lie, it was my entire career being hijacked. A knot of panic tightened in my chest. What if they traced something back to me? Misuse of credentials in corporate filings wasn't just unethical. It could be classified as fraud. My reputation, my ability to work in the field again, even legal consequences. It could all be on the line if I stayed quiet. I didn't know who else to turn to, so I scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in years. Mira Sullivan. Mira was a sharp environmental attorney I'd worked with during a messy investigation into a toxic spill cover-up. She was one of the few people who truly understood how serious this kind of credential misuse could be. It was nearly midnight when I called her, but she picked up on the second ring. Leela? Wow, it's been ages. What's going on? Mira, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I think my cousin used my professional licenses to get hired at a global energy company. I didn't give permission, and now they're asking for my signature on clearance documents. There was a long pause. Lila, that's not just shady. It could be corporate fraud. If her employer finds out and you haven't reported it, you could get dragged into it. I swallowed hard. What do I do? Start by collecting every piece of evidence you can, she said firmly. Old project files, official clearance logs, anything showing your certifications are yours alone. We need a paper trail, something that proves they misused your identity. Don't sign anything. Not a single page. When we hung up, I stared at my laptop screen, anger slowly replacing fear. This wasn't just about Kara anymore. Something told me my family had been dipping into my professional standing for longer than I realized. I wasn't about to let it continue. 2 days later, I met Mira at a small cafe near her downtown office. She looked exactly the same, sharp black blazer, her hair pinned up neatly, and that steady, no-nonsense gaze that made people confess things they didn't want to say. I handed her a folder with printouts of Kara's clearance documents and the resume I'd found on the company portal. Mira skimmed the pages, her brow furrowing. This isn't just misuse, Lila. There's language here suggesting your credentials were used in prior contracts. Plural. Did your family ever have access to your license numbers? The pit in my stomach grew heavier. Maybe. My uncle runs a small consulting firm. Years ago, I remember helping him write a technical summary for an energy bid. He asked for some of my certification details, but I didn't think much of it. Mira leaned back, tapping a pen against the folder. We need someone who knows his operations, someone inside who's seen what he's been doing with your information. That's when I thought of Sonia Ruiz, a former accountant who had worked for my uncle's firm until last year. Sonia had always been kind to me, quietly slipping me updates about the family business when I was working overseas. If anyone had kept records, it would be her. That afternoon, I drove across town to Sonia's small apartment complex. She opened the door, looking tired but wary, as if she'd been expecting trouble. Lila, it's been ages, she said, but her voice was cautious. I need to ask you something, I said gently. Did my uncle ever use my professional credentials in his contracts? I think Kara's job offer might be tied to it. Sonia's eyes darted to the side before she let out a shaky breath. You should sit down. We sat at her tiny kitchen table, where she hesitated before pulling a small black USB drive from a drawer. I've been holding on to this just in case. There are copies of applications, proposals, things that never felt right. Your name is on almost all of them, Lila. I think he's been using your environmental licenses to win contracts with Sterling and other energy companies. I stared at the USB drive, my pulse thundering in my ears. Why didn't you say something sooner? I wanted to, but your uncle. He can be intimidating. He told me not to ask questions. When I finally quit, I took this as insurance. I'm sorry, Mira, who had come with me, leaned forward and gave Sonia a reassuring nod. You did the right thing by holding on to it. This evidence could protect Lila and expose what he's been doing. The weight of it all sank in as Sonia's words replayed in my head. My uncle hadn't just borrowed my name. He had built parts of his business and Kara's career on my work, as if I were some faceless asset in his back pocket. I looked at Mira, my decision solidifying. We're going after him. All of it. I chose the cafe carefully, neutral ground, busy enough that my uncle wouldn't make a scene, but quiet enough for my recorder to pick up every word. Mira had set me up with a discreet earpiece connected to her phone. She was parked just a block away, ready to listen and record everything. When my uncle walked in, he was all smiles, like we were just catching up over coffee. He wore his usual press shirt and cufflinks, the picture of success, but I could see the unease in his eyes the moment he spotted me. Lila, he said warmly, sliding into the seat across from me. It's been too long. How's the, sabbatical treating you? I didn't bother with small talk. I know about the contracts, I said, my voice steady. I know you've been using my credentials without my consent, and I know Kara's job is tied to those forged documents. For a moment, he blinked like I'd spoken another language. Then he chuckled, leaning back in his chair. You make it sound so dramatic. It's not like I stole anything. I just leveraged your reputation for the family. You should be proud of what we've built. I gritted my teeth. Proud? You used my name to secure contracts I never reviewed. And now Kara is benefiting from something I didn't authorize. That's fraud, Uncle David. He sighed, as if I was a stubborn child. You're overreacting. Nobody cares about the fine print. Besides, Kara's future depends on this. Don't be selfish, Lila. We're family. My hands curled around my coffee cup. Family doesn't exploit each other and then call it love. His tone hardened. Careful. You wouldn't want to ruin your own name over something so trivial. Do you really think anyone will believe you weren't part of it? Mira's voice crackled faintly in my ear. Keep him talking. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. So you're admitting you used my credentials without asking? He shrugged with a smirk. I'm admitting I did what needed to be done for all of us. That was all I needed. I stood up, leaving my coffee untouched. Thanks for confirming. That was the last favor you'll ever get from me. As I walked out of the cafe, my phone buzzed. Mira's voice was calm but firm. We got it, Lila. His arrogance just gave us the strongest piece of evidence yet. 2 mornings after the cafe meeting, my phone started buzzing nonstop. At first, I thought it was Kara again, trying to smooth things over. But when I opened my newsfeed, my breath caught in my throat. A glossy online article had my name splashed across the headline. Bitter ex-environmentalist attempts to derail young innovator's career. The photo showed Kara smiling confidently beside the Sterling Global Energy logo, while the article painted me as some washed-up contractor who couldn't handle someone else's success. It twisted the story, claiming I was jealous of my cousin's rise and had fabricated accusations to sabotage her. My uncle's fingerprints were all over it. For a moment, I felt sick. I imagined people I'd worked with overseas reading this and believing it. My stomach tightened with the thought of my professional reputation being shredded by a lie. But then I took a deep breath and remembered what Mira had told me. Facts win. Lies crumble when you hit them with evidence. I forwarded the article to Mira with a single word. Expected? Her reply came seconds later. Oh, very. We'll make them regret going public. That afternoon, I met Mira in her office, where she had already set up a war room of sorts. My old project files and Sonia's USB drive were spread across her desk, along with the audio recording of my uncle's confession from the cafe. Sonia had also agreed to sign an affidavit detailing everything she knew about the forged documents. They're trying to paint you as irrelevant because they know the truth will destroy them, Mira said, scrolling through the smear article. Let's turn that narrative inside out. I nodded, feeling my anger harden into focus. What's our first move? Deliver this evidence to Sterling's compliance department, she said, holding up a folder of documents. And prepare a legal case for corporate fraud, identity misuse, and defamation. We'll hit them where it hurts, their reputation and their bottom line. That evening, my phone buzzed again. Kara. Against my better judgment, I answered. Leela. I'm sorry, she said softly. Her voice sounded thinner than usual, almost trembling. I didn't know Dad would go this far. I thought if I just got my foot in the door, I could prove myself. I didn't mean for this to blow up like this. I leaned against the kitchen counter, silent for a moment. Then why didn't you stop him? Because I wanted it too badly, she admitted. I don't want to lose everything now. Can't we just work this out privately? I closed my eyes and shook my head. Not anymore, Kara. This isn't just about you or me. It's about a whole pattern of lies. I'm done being quiet. She didn't respond. I hung up before I could waver. As I emailed Sterling's compliance team, attaching Sonia's files and the cafe confession, I felt a calm I hadn't felt in years. My uncle wanted a public fight. Fine. I was done playing the quiet, overlooked relative. I had the truth, and that was stronger than any smear campaign. The tribunal room didn't look like a courtroom, but it carried the same weight. A long conference table stretched across the center, lined with stern-faced panelists from Sterling Global Energy, and an independent ethics board. At one end sat Mira, poised and confident, with Sonia and me by her side. Across from us were my Uncle David, his lawyer, and Kara, who looked like she hadn't slept in days. The lead panelist, a tall man in a dark gray suit, began. We're here to address allegations of fraudulent use of professional environmental credentials within Sterling's hiring and contract processes. All parties will present their evidence. Miss Greenwood, you may begin. Mira stood first, handing out neatly bound packets of documents. What we have here is clear and deliberate misuse of my client's credentials. Miss Lila Greenwood spent over a decade building her standing as a licensed environmental contractor. Yet her name and certifications were used, without her consent, to secure corporate contracts and to fast-track a hiring process for Miss Kara Barnes. The panelists flipped through the documents, their faces hardening as they scanned Sonia's spreadsheets and copied applications. Mira tapped the USB drive on the table. This device contains records from Mr. David Barnes's consulting firm. It shows a pattern, years of forged environmental clearance reports, all bearing Ms. Greenwood's name. David scoffed. This is ridiculous. We used her name as a family favor. She knew about it. No, I interrupted, my voice sharper than I expected. I didn't. I found out at a barbecue where my cousin waved my name around like a ticket she earned herself. The panelist raised a hand. Mr. Barnes, let her finish. Mira nodded at Sonia, who looked nervous but determined. Sonia Ruiz, former accountant for Barnes Consulting, can attest to the fraudulent use of Lila's licenses. Sonia cleared her throat. I saw everything. I kept records because I didn't want to be implicated. The contracts, the bids, Mr. Barnes forged technical approvals using Lila's credentials to land deals he couldn't have qualified for otherwise. A low murmur rippled through the panel. David's lawyer leaned in to whisper something, but David's face flushed crimson. So what? It's not like we hurt anyone. This is how business works. Fraud is not business, Mira said coldly. It's a crime, and Sterling is now entangled in it. The tribunal turned to Kara. Ms. Barnes, did you knowingly submit false information during your hiring process? Kara's eyes darted between me and her father. Her hands trembled on the table. I didn't think it was false. Dad said it was fine. He told me Lila wouldn't care. The silence in the room felt heavy. Kara swallowed hard. But yes, I signed the forms. I didn't fully understand what I was signing. One of the panelists, a woman with steel gray hair, leaned forward. Sterling Global has zero tolerance for fraudulent credentials. This is serious, Ms. Barnes. David tried to recover, his voice dripping with indignation. You're all making a mountain out of nothing. My niece should be thanking me. Her name gave us influence. That's something to celebrate. I sat straighter, my voice calm. You don't get to define my success, Uncle. Not anymore. You've stolen my work and belittled me for years. That ends here. The lead panelist gathered the papers. We will deliberate and take appropriate action. But let me be clear. This evidence is compelling, and the consequences will be severe. As we left the room, Cora avoided my eyes. David muttered something under his breath, but Mira squeezed my shoulder. You did well, she said. Facts don't lie, and neither do recordings. For the first time in weeks, I felt the tide turning, not just in the room, but inside me. The news broke 3 days after the tribunal. Sterling Global released a public statement announcing that they were rescinding Cora's job offer due to discrepancies in her application process. The statement didn't name me, but it didn't have to. Every line of it confirmed what I'd been fighting to prove. That Cora's fast track to success had been built on lies. That same afternoon, a regional news site picked up the story and published an article about fraudulent certifications in energy contracts, naming David Barnes Consulting as the firm under investigation. By evening, the article had gone viral in local business circles. My phone buzzed with messages from former colleagues, many of them expressing shock and support. David, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. His firm's website vanished overnight, and rumors spread that several clients had dropped him. According to Mira, legal proceedings were already being discussed. Corporate fraud charges weren't just possible, they were likely. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, watching the news ticker roll across the bottom of the screen. Consulting firm accused of using fraudulent credentials in energy bids. For a long moment, I just stared at it. I had imagined this moment, my family's smug confidence cracking. But the reality didn't feel like victory. It felt like relief. Later that evening, my mother called. I didn't pick up at first, but after the third call, I answered. Lila, she said, her voice soft, almost timid. Your uncle's in trouble, Kara. She's devastated. Couldn't you? No, I said, cutting her off gently but firmly. You don't get to ask me to fix this. Not after how you all treated me. She was silent for a long moment. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. I didn't see how much you were hurting. I didn't know what to say to that. Maybe years ago, I would have clung to her apology like a lifeline. But now it felt like too little, too late. I need space, I said quietly. Please respect that. I ended the call before she could respond. The following week, Sterling Global officially confirmed my name had been cleared. Mira sent me a message with a small note attached. Your reputation is intact, and stronger than ever. She even hinted that a few companies had inquired about consulting with me directly, impressed by the way I had handled the situation. Meanwhile, Kara sent one text. Just one. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry. I read it twice, then deleted it without replying. She had made her choice when she signed those papers. As I closed my laptop that night, I realized I felt lighter. Not happy exactly, just free. My uncle's empire was crumbling. Kara's corporate dream had evaporated, and for the first time, I wasn't the quiet shadow in the family. I was simply me, no longer defined by their expectations or their misuse of my name. 3 months passed before I felt like I could breathe normally again. The legal storm around David's firm continued to swirl, with lawsuits and investigations stacking up like dominoes. My name, however, was no longer tied to any of it. Mira had seen to that. Instead of hiding in embarrassment, I decided it was time to step back into the professional world on my own terms. When a university in Boston invited me to speak at a seminar on professional ethics and environmental work, I hesitated at first. Public speaking had never been my strong suit, and the idea of putting myself out there again made my stomach twist. But something in me knew I had to do it. If my name had been dragged through the mud by others, I wanted to be the one to bring it back into the light. The seminar hall was filled with students, professors, and a few industry professionals. I stood at the podium, my palms slightly sweaty, but my voice was steady. Your name, I began, is more than just a signature on paper. It's your history, your reputation, and the trust you build through years of work. If you don't protect it, someone else will use it to write a story that doesn't belong to you. I talked about what had happened without naming names, how someone close to me had misused my credentials, how I'd felt powerless at first, and how I learned the hard way that silence doesn't mean strength. It only gives others permission to define who you are. The room was so quiet. I could hear the hum of the overhead lights. When I finished, there was a long pause before the audience started clapping. It wasn't loud or wild, but it felt genuine, like they'd really heard me. Afterward, a young woman approached me. "Your story." "It's exactly what I needed to hear," she said. "I've been scared to stand up to my boss about something unethical at work. But maybe I should," I smiled at her. "If something feels wrong, trust your gut. Your name is yours, protect it." Back at my cabin in the countryside, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: calm. I spent quiet mornings at my kitchen table, filling out applications for new environmental initiatives under my own name. No one else's fingerprints, no borrowed reputations, just mine. When I signed my name at the bottom of each application, it no longer felt like a weight. It felt like an act of defiance and pride. One evening, as I watched the sun dip behind the trees, I realized I wasn't just reclaiming my name. I was reclaiming myself, the woman who had spent years working hard, risking everything in crisis zones, and building something real. That woman was still here. It was a crisp autumn evening when the letter arrived. I found it tucked between a stack of flyers and utility bills in my mailbox. The handwriting on the envelope stopped me cold. Kara's. For a moment, I debated tossing it straight into the recycling bin. But curiosity got the better of me. Inside, on a single sheet of lined paper, she'd written, "Lila, I don't expect forgiveness. I see now what Dad and I did. And I know I crossed a line I can't uncross. I didn't understand the value of your work, your name, or how much I hurt you by taking it. Maybe I was just trying to prove myself, but I see now that I only proved my own weakness. I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know I understand now." It wasn't an apology, at least not in the way I wanted. It was more of an acknowledgement, a quiet admission that she finally saw me for who I was. But as I read it again, I realized that was enough. I didn't need her regret to heal. I'd already moved on. I walked outside, the air cool against my face, and carried the letter to the fire pit behind my cabin. With one flick of a match, the paper curled and blackened, the words turning to ash. Watching it burn felt like shutting a door I'd left open for too long. That night, I sat on the porch with a mug of coffee, and Noah, an old friend from my university days who had always kept in touch, even when I was halfway across the world. He'd stopped by on his way to a hiking trip and now sat beside me, his hands wrapped around a warm thermos. "So," he said, looking out at the trees, "how does it feel? Winning, I mean." I shook my head with a small smile. "It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like breathing, like I can finally do my work without someone else's shadow hanging over me." He nodded thoughtfully. "That sounds like a better kind of victory." We sat there for a while in comfortable silence, listening to the distant hum of crickets. I realized I didn't need a celebration or anyone's approval. My peace wasn't loud or flashy. It was the quiet kind, the kind you carry inside you when you know you've reclaimed what's yours. Later that evening, I drafted a proposal for a new environmental initiative, my first major solo project since coming home. As I typed my name at the bottom, I felt a calm certainty wash over me. My name was mine again, and that meant everything. Justice, I realized, isn't always about grand gestures or public victories. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to move forward on your own terms, with no need to look back. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready for whatever came next.